Well, I think I'll get started here. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we're excited to have John Hagel share with us his perspectives on metrics in a human-centered AI world. And I wanted to provide a little bit of background going into this. We formed an alliance, a collective around what we call H Core. And the H Core was initially stimulated in conversation with John and Gary Bowles and myself about the fact that most of our efforts and what gets promoted right now is the use of AI to improve efficiency, reduce jobs, and not as much emphasis on the implications that this has in the human spirit. And so we started to build a group of people to explore this, and we're now well into shaping what we believe is a good agenda to help contribute to this, as we're all volunteering our time. And it's framed around measuring the impact of human-centered AI, developing what a human-centered organization might look like and how you measure it, developing the ability of leadership and communications in a human-centered AI age, and the impact it has on education in the next generation. And I'll share as we evolve this activity. We're hoping to bring more of a voice of Gen Z and young folks into helping us shape our agenda, bring other voices into this. So we appreciate you joining us today and exploring this important issue. Um, for those of you that don't know John Hagel, John is someone who's spent his career really impacting how people view organizational design and impact. He's written a number of books, The Journey Beyond Fear, a number of papers. He was co-director of research on the edge at Deloitte. And I probably could go on for the next hour with his credits and contributions that he's made, but we're all here to hear from John. So, John, do you have some opening remarks? And then the format, I'll be asking John a few questions at the bottom of the hour. We'll start curating your questions. So as we go through this, if you'd be kind enough to add your questions, and we'll take them at the bottom of the hour. So, John, I'm going to hand it to you.
No, well, I was waiting for questions, so I just indicate that I'm very excited about participating in this initiative and look forward to the conversation we're going to have here today.
That's great. Well, let's jump into it. Why do you feel metrics are so important for human-centered AI?
Well, I think it's an interesting age that we live in. I mean, virtually everyone is talking about AI. I've rarely attended a meeting recently where AI has not been a significant topic. And we all talk about it a lot and different perspectives and everything else, but very few people are really focused on how do we measure the impact of AI and determine whether it's actually achieving positive results or negative results. And it's an interesting set of conversations. I think that again, I see two sides of the discussion emerging. One is from AI champions who believe that AI is going to change the world for the better and help all of us to achieve more impact. But on the other side, I see an equal, if not larger group actually driven by fear and saying that AI is going to eliminate all our jobs. We're all going to be poverty stricken and left to fend for ourselves without any support. So I think it's an interesting discussion. And my belief is I've been involved in technology. I've been in Silicon Valley for over 40 years now. And one of the things that I've learned is that the debate is usually about the technology. Is the technology good or bad? For me, the debate should be about the human beings using the technology. Are they going to use it for good or for evil? And I think it's like any tool in the world. I mean, even before technology, I mean, hammers. um, you know, you can use a hammer for good or you can use a hammer for evil. And it's up to us as human beings how this technology is going to be used. And the technology is just there to be used. So anyway, that would be my perspective, and I think by focusing on metrics, we can start to see what impact is AI actually already achieving, and how do we measure that impact so that we can over time find ways to improve the impact and metrics that are positive versus metrics that are diminishing us. So.
That's great. And it requires a lot of diligence as no one has done this before. And so yeah, it's still gray as we start to unpack that together.
And I can't resist. I mean, Peter Drucker, famous business theorist and activist, had the famous quote, "If you can't measure it, you can't improve it." And so I think it's a key requirement for all of us if we're focused on AI. How are we going to measure that impact? And then measure it, not just talk about measuring the impact, but find ways so that we can measure it in all kinds of different environments with all kinds of different participants, and keep measuring it over time to see whether it's advancing or detracting from our what we want to achieve.
And as John elaborates on that, we are open arms to hear people's reflections on how to measure the human aspects of AI. So please feel free to share any thoughts, references, so we can provide more of a corpus for anyone that might come and visit. As you're thinking about this area of measurement, in the past, where have you seen technology be effectively measured in its impact?
Frankly, I'm not sure I have. I mean, I think that the technology is being measured usually, in large organizations, and it's being measured in terms of its ability to contribute to that large organization's agenda. But it doesn't really focus on the people, the participants in the organization, and what potential they can achieve and how they can achieve more impact. It's all about the organization.
Mhm.
And it is very natural that we want to grab onto something we know and we're comfortable with. And that becomes more a left brain activity than the ability to the subtleties of human condition, which historically we haven't done real well in measuring.
Mm. Mm. May I ask a question? This is Giovanni.
Sure.
Hi, John.
I,
Hi. One thing that I'm thinking is before I tuned in for the call was thinking, oh, so we're going to have a discussion on how this is measured inside the enterprise for business value. But then when I heard you start, it seemed a lot broader than that. It's really, more societal. How do we, yeah, and so then the question is metrics the right word that we would use when talking societally? Like, because metrics is definitely the right word with business, right? If we're going to start talking about the business value. But I'm wondering, is there something else here that's even bigger that you're scratching at? You know, that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I think that, at a societal level, the metrics, yes, are bigger, but there are metrics. I mean, I believe in any context or environment that we're in, if we're not measuring things,
Yeah,
good luck. We're
right.
just going to be random events and
Mhm.
random progress, if progress at all, or maybe
Right.
deterioration. So I do believe that there's a real need for beyond the individual, beyond the organizations to really be thoughtful about what are the metrics of how we would measure societal progress.
Maybe that's the big contribution to actually get people to think metrically.
Yeah, well, good observation for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
On that note, where do you see metrics surfacing around this today?
You're asking the metric surfacing. I'm not sure what you mean by
Yeah.
that.
What metrics do you feel are important?
Well, do I feel are important or
Yeah.
do I feel that people
Yeah.
around me are feeling are
Well, that's why I phrased the question the way I did. It's not
No,
just
because
you,
it's a
but
different answer to the
yeah,
question if it's
yeah,
about the people in the world around us
yeah,
versus me,
right.
because
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I have a different view of the metrics. I mean, I
Right.
would say that I'm going to generalize. It's a tendency of mine, but if I do a lot of work with large leaders of large organizations around the world, and they basically have just two questions when we talk about AI, which is how quickly can I automate and how many jobs can I eliminate?
Right.
Let's measure that. Acceleration of implementation and acceleration of cutting jobs, cutting work. That's progress. And I think, unfortunately, it's one of the key reasons that the emotion of fear is becoming so dominant when we look at AI, because people in organizations around the world, even though the leaders aren't saying this publicly, they have a clear sense this is what the leaders are wanting to do with this technology, and their jobs are at risk. So, that's, I believe, the challenge, and the whole focus of human-centered AI is a very different set of metrics, which is on how can this technology help all of us as human beings to achieve much more of our potential and accelerate that improvement over time, not just a one-time improvement in potential, but a long acceleration, and by coming together, achieving even more. So that's the focus for me, and I think for the human-centered AI initiative is really how do we measure the ability of AI to achieve more, help us achieve more of our potential. And it's in that context that we've identified the initial survey that you can access online. Uh,
Hmm.
and it focuses on many things that for most executives would be kind of weird. I mean, it starts with emotions. Our belief is that one of the key challenges or opportunities for this technology is to shape our emotions. And if we're being driven by fear, we're going to have a very different approach to using AI than if we're excited about the opportunity to have much greater impact. And so measuring emotions, how are we feeling about this technology? Are we afraid of it or are we excited about it? Is kind of a key initial question to really focus on. And then again, come a lot of different themes in here, but one measure of impact that we believe is positive or could be positive is the ability to expand our relation and expand and deepen our relationships with other people. Are we becoming more isolated when we use AI, or are we connecting much more effectively with a broader range of more diverse people that can help us to come up with new ideas and achieve much more impact than we could just on our own. And again, I think that's an interesting potential issue is isolation versus greater connection. Um, and then the extent to which AI helps us to really pursue our what's meaningful to us and what our purpose is versus distracting us from that. And I think again, most people to really achieve more of their potential have to be driven to achieve more of their purpose and things that are meaningful to them.
Hmm.
Question is AI helping us to do that, or is it taking us in the other direction, away from things that are meaningful and purposeful? Um, and just to keep on with some of the categories of
Right.
the metrics, at least this is a starting point. Believe we're going to evolve it over time as we learn more. This is just the beginning. But another category of metrics is metrics that matter at work. I mean, yeah, most of us are working, and the question is the technology helping us to be to create more value, to be more efficient in creating value, to do it faster than we did before? And yes, as individuals, this is an important metric as well. We want to always have more impact with less effort and faster than we've ever done it before. And then there's another set of metrics that we focused on, which have to do with capabilities. And this is an interesting distinction. I find that many people, when they talk about AI, are talking about skills. You know, what skills do we need to use AI? And while I think skills are certainly relevant, the way I think about skills is they're helpful in a particular context. A skill on how to use this machine or how to do this kind of calculation in my work. And while I don't want to dismiss that, I believe that another dimension of impact on people is capabilities. I believe capabilities are useful in every context, not just in a particular context, but it's things like curiosity, imagination, creativity, reflection on results. All of those, I think, are really powerful in helping us to learn and have more impact in whatever environment we're in. So one of the key elements in the survey and a key element for the metrics that we're focused on is what's the impact of AI in building and cultivating those capabilities for us as individuals? Are we getting better at it, or are we losing those capabilities because AI is doing all the work and who cares? We don't need curiosity or imagination or whatever. So anyway, I've gone on a bit, but I think that there are many different dimensions of this focus on um, how do we measure the impact of AI on humans, and excited to see the results as we get more and more respondents.
That's great.
Yeah.
Building on that for a moment. There was a conversation I had with someone this morning talking about AI in the organization, taking us away from the emphasis on culture. And what is your perspective on how we can help in emphasizing human-centered AI as it pertains to organizational culture?
Well, that's a huge and whole other topic for a webinar, I guess. I don't know. It's culture for one thing is very hard to define, at least in my experience. What do we really mean by culture? Um, I think I'll just proceed with again generalizations, but I believe the culture we have in most large organizations today is just listen to the leader, read the manual, follow the tasks as assigned, do not deviate from them, and don't take any risks. That's the culture that we're in, and do it quickly and efficiently. Speed and efficiency is the key metric of performance and progress. And I believe that an alternative culture is what I would call a culture of scalable learning, where the focus is how can we create environments where everyone is learning faster and learning in the form of creating new knowledge. Again, I make a distinction when I talk to leaders about learning. They say, "Oh, learning, yes, we have training programs. You can go to the training program, you can sign up, listen to the lecturer, take an exam to show you what you've memorized it, and you've learned." No, my belief is that's a form of learning which is about sharing existing knowledge. Knowledge that already exists, but you just didn't have it. Now you have it. The learning that's most necessary and important in a rapidly changing world is learning in the form of creating entirely new knowledge that never existed before. And you don't do that in a training room. You do that in your work environment as you're confronting unexpected situations and finding creative ways to respond to them to add more value and continue to learn. So I think that that's a very different culture and one that is going to be challenging to implement, frankly, because the existing culture is so resistant to that form of learning.
Which is a reason we all came together to unpack this.
Yeah.
That's good. We'll take questions in about 5 minutes. Thanks for your patience. Continuing, what concerns do you have about how AI is being implemented today?
Well, again, I think I highlighted that earlier in this notion of the way most leaders of large organizations, and by the way, this isn't just companies, this is governments, this is universities, this is nonprofits. Leaders of large organizations around the world are focused on how do we use this technology to become more efficient, to reduce cost. It's all about cutting cost. There's very little focus on adding more value. It's all about cutting cost. And again, I go back to this notion that technology can be used for good or bad, but if you're just using it to cut cost, in my mind, that's missing the big opportunity, the real opportunity of AI, which is helping all of us to achieve more of our potential and achieve much greater value and deliver more value to the stakeholders that are relevant to us. And I think that's what's missing. And I'll just say that I've given a lot of talks now on how technology can restore our humanity. Because the way I see it, and again, generalization, sorry, work in all large organizations is tightly specified routine tasks. Read the manual, do the tasks as assigned, and that's how you're going to advance yourself in the organization. Frankly, I believe that kind of work should have never been done by human beings. We get distracted, we make mistakes. Let technology do that kind of work. But then, rather than just firing the people who were doing that work, realize that you've now opened up an opportunity for them to become creative and find ways to deliver more value to whatever part of the organization is relevant to them. And yeah, I don't know if I have time to give a quick example, but
Yeah, go for it.
an example is a company that was in the clinical laboratory business. And in their call center operations, they found that their customers were leaving at an accelerating rate because they were more unhappy with the answers they were getting from the questions that they were presenting. And the customer service representatives were leaving because they were frustrated that the customers weren't happy. The head of the department brought all the people together. And he said, first thing is none of you are going to lose your jobs. You will all remain employed. Your second assignment is to take all the things, all the routine questions that you've been getting from customers that are consuming all your time and work with the technology department so they can automate the answers to those questions and free you up. And then, with all that free time that you've now created, come together into small groups. He called them pods, where you can identify a really challenging question that was never encountered before and come up with a creative, imaginative way to answer that question and deliver value to the customer. Long story short, customer satisfaction went way up. Customer service representative retention went way up because now they were delivering more and more value to the customer and feeling that they were doing things that had never been done before and making a unique contribution. So anyway, sorry, just quick.
No, no, that's great. I'll add to that. Recently there was some write-ups on Google and Microsoft bringing their product leaders to the forefront of helping with AI adoption. So the voice of the customer in a similar pod approach to what you just described. What excites you? You've mentioned a few things. Can you build on that a little bit?
Boy, I generally am prone to excitement. And again, I've been in technology for a long time, so technology in general excites me, but AI particularly. I see the opportunity for all of us to learn faster using this technology. And again, learning in the form of creating new knowledge. And so that to me is where the real opportunity is. In a rapidly changing world, we're confronting more and more new situations that have never been encountered before, and finding creative and imaginative ways to address those situations to me is of huge value, not just to the individual, but to the organization that they're participating in. So that's what really, and in the end, it's about achieving much more of your potential. And by the way, I'm very resistant to the notion of achieving your full potential because I don't believe there is a limit to our potential. No matter how much potential we achieve, there's even more potential to be achieved. Keep on going.
That's optimism.
Well,
That's good. Do you have any final comments before we open it up for questions?
wow. No, hopefully you can see that I'm a bit passionate about this, and I again see the huge opportunity that's out there, but it's requiring action. I think we all have to mobilize to act and help support the effort to apply this technology in ways that achieve more of our potential rather than using it just to cut costs and eliminate people. And that's I don't want to underestimate the challenge that that involves. I think there's going to be huge resistance to the notion of moving beyond just efficiency, but I think it's huge potential.
That's great. Thanks, John. I'm going to move towards taking questions. And as well, there are a number of the H-Core folks who are on the call as well. If you want to share any of your observations from our conversations. And last thing before moving on, there's a link to the survey. Please take a look at it, share it. And we're trying to bring more young voices into this conversation. So any help in that would be appreciated. So I'm going to start with Chandra.
That will be me, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So glad to be here. And John, I wanted to kind of go back, first of all, insightful. I wanted to go back to your mention about the matrices and matrices needs to be different, and perhaps kind of a naive question, a dumb one, if I would call it. That why should the matrices be different? My take is uh, what we need to be measuring is what matters, and that should not and hasn't changed. What potentially has changed in the AI era is the measurement mechanisms, is the targets perhaps, or the governance mechanism and the way we respond to the performance. But end of the day, what we want to measure should and has remained the same, whether it's efficiency or effectiveness, uh, customer matrices, employee matrices, societal matrices, sustainability matrices. So I'm just curious to understand when you say matrices need to be looked at differently, what do we mean here?
Well, again, and I'm going to generalize, but I believe most large organizations, when they focus on metrics, it's efficiency metrics.
Okay.
How fast did you do the job? How cheaply did you do it? Did you make any mistakes? Did you take any risks? That's the metric, metrics versus no, how can we come together and create much more value together? And I'll just give you a quick example. One of um, very few organizations look at emotions of the participants. Key focus for us is measuring emotions. What are the emotions as you start to work with AI? And how does it change your emotions?
Mhm.
And I think for again, generalizing, most organizations today view emotions as a distraction. And if they look at emotions, it's something like worker engagement. Do you like the work you do? Do you like the people you work with? Versus, are you really excited and passionate about the work you do? Passion is suspect. Passionate people ask too many questions. They take too many risks. They make too many mistakes. Why would you want a passionate worker?
Mhm.
My belief is passion ultimately is the key to unlocking the potential of this technology. If the individual is not passionate, not just the leader, but the individual using the technology is not passionate about achieving more and more impact in a specific area, good luck. You're not going to achieve the full potential that the technology has to offer.
No, there I agree from that perspective. But having said that, I would say just to build on your response, if I may put in, John, that yes, if the organization is having a myopic set of matrices right now, efficiency focus only, then God help them. They will not be able to survive the current era we are living in if they are not focusing broader. And if they are not focusing on the passion, then yes, it's a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. But that's the way probably I look at it. But yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate the
For the
response. Thanks.
question. I'm gonna turn to a couple of questions that I think overlap from Tim and Tammy about measuring something that keeps developing at an exponential pace and connecting that to what do we measure and why. So if you have thoughts as to how do we get the signal to focus on that might have the greatest impact.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the question.
How do we determine emergent behaviors around human-centered AI that could have an exponential impact?
Well, part of it is looking at measuring the value that's being delivered from the people, not just the efficiency, time, and cost of the effort, but what value was delivered and is that increasing over time? That's a key metric that I think is missing from most organizations at this point. And so it's a challenge. Obviously, the value differs depending on who you are and what organization you're part of, but being thoughtful about what is the value that everybody can be delivering and increase over time. Focus on increasing that value, not just measuring it and saying, okay, this is the value we deliver. We're going to continue to deliver that value. Good luck. No, it's how do we increase that everywhere in the organization? And again, I'll just be a bit controversial, I guess, and say that in most large organizations, that kind of discussion is great for the R&D department or the innovation laboratories, but keep it away from the rest of the organization. The rest of the organization is all about doing the job as assigned, faster and cheaper. So again, I'm sorry if I'm overgeneralizing, but
That's
my
great.
experience.
Did that answer your question, Tim?
Yeah, I think it was also the fact that the nature of the technology is also developing at an exponential rate. So how do you keep up measuring something that may be out of date by the time you measure it? And things have moved on. So it's that mindset, I think.
No, it's a good question, and that is a challenge for sure. The technology is exponentially improving, but frankly, the challenge and the opportunity is as human beings, we're not exponentially improving. We're improving hopefully at an accelerating rate, even if it's not exponential, and being focused on the humans and what kind of impact they're delivering from this exponential technology. Is it improving over time, or is it just static and stable at a particular level?
I'm going to put Gary
Thank you.
Bowles on the spot. Gary, do you have some contribution to the conversation?
Well, you're asking me if I can riff on this topic. Is that what you? Okay, okay.
No.
And on something that John Hagel's. I think it's probably more of trying to rein myself in from having too many things that I would want to mention. So first off, John, as always,
Oh, I think we lost Gary.
The technology is not quite exponential enough yet.
Yeah, I'd be interested. You guys get together a bit. I'd be interested in any observations you've shared with each other.
No, I think we share a lot of the same desire and the view that technology is exponentially improving, and we need to really improving in terms of price performance, and we need to really understand that rate of improvement and how it's changing the rest of the world, and our need to change the way we behave using that technology, and so that we can achieve much more impact over time. And we both have that kind of um, excitement about the opportunity, but recognizing it's also a challenge because it does require fundamental change, and change is not easy. Again, I mentioned briefly this notion of the emotion of fear, but in my experience, and it's the reason I wrote my most recent book, The Journey Beyond Fear, is I see the emotion of fear becoming more and more prevalent around the world, not just in the US and not just with workers, but everybody in every context feeling more fear, and specifically fear of the future. Do we see the future as a threat or as an opportunity? I think more and more people are seeing the future as very threatening, very scary. I don't want to go there. I'm going to hold on to what I have and hope that I can make it through. And
That's dangerous.
that's very dangerous. So there's a vicious cycle there that I won't go into, but that leads to less and less progress and performance improvement. And but it's again the paradox is that we're in a world of exponentially expanding opportunity, and the fear. If we feel the fear, we can't even see the opportunity, much less pursue it. Um, but you know, if we could get excited about an opportunity, then we'll pursue it and take whatever risk is required in order to achieve the opportunity. And I should say too, I mean, one other key theme in the research around learning in the form of creating new knowledge is that no matter how smart or talented we are as individuals, we can learn a lot faster together, and particularly in small groups. I call them impact groups. It's typically between 3 to 15 people who develop deep trust-based relationships with each other and are constantly challenging each other as well as supporting each other because they're excited about having more and more impact in a specific area. And I believe that a key role that AI can play and other technology is helping those small groups to convene and then support them in their journey to create more impact.
I think that ties well into Greg's last comment in chat about relationships and connections.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we need more effort on that thread.
Right. And again, just to clarify on that too, and it's one of the things we measure in the survey is not just the number of relationships or the depth of the relationships, but the diversity of the relationships. If you're just connecting with people who came from the same background as you, same perspective as you, same beliefs as you, good luck. You're not going to learn as rapidly as when you bring together a diverse group of people who are coming at this from many different angles and will challenge and support each other as you ask the questions and try to get more and more impact that's meaningful.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. JSB, who's on the call, shared with me once one of the factors he believes is unique to Silicon Valley is the cross-fertilization. And, you know, being a valley of engineers, they're opinionated, they like to debate, they have different opinions, and through that come new ideas.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and again, a lot could be talked about the culture of Silicon Valley, but I think it's one of the reasons it's been so successful is it draws people from all over the world. I mean, the majority of successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley were not born in the United States. But
Yes,
because of this willingness and desire to connect with others, they're coming up with even more creative ideas than if they were just all from the same university, same, city. Yeah.
that's great. Jorge?
So I want to share a couple thoughts, but I just saw that Gary came back online, so I would love to get Gary's thoughts first, and then I'd be happy to share some of my own.
Great.
No, I appreciate that. All right. I was going to say something critical about AI software, and I think Zoom's technology just immediately
Answered
kicked
it.
me off in anticipation. So, but once again, humans have overcome their technologies at least briefly. So, no, thanks. Sorry. So just very briefly. So, I think we talked about the threat of moving at exponential speed. Technologies keep on changing, and that there's a lot of the things that we might want to understand about how we would know if the technologies are being used effectively in context, as John says. And my response is these are exactly the reasons why you go through this process. When we started this conference called SOCAP back in 2008, one of the things that I was pounding the table for was metrics, saying, look, we can't keep on saying we're going to do well and do good without agreeing what that means. And it was exactly the same thing. It's a constantly moving landscape. What people thought was impact or thought were good investments. There's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of change going on. There was a spectrum of things you could measure very, very closely and things that you just could not get people to agree on measuring. And but my push was that we had to do this, that this is why. And what ends up happening is if you co-create that process, if you have a whole bunch of stakeholders, as John said, very, very different perspectives coming together, then what you find is that you can develop some through lines. You actually do get agreement about what can be measured now, what might be measured later. And we also are in a unique period where the tools themselves, the technologies themselves can be extremely helpful, especially for the more nuanced stuff that we might have said, oh, it's not numerical, it's not in a database, so we can't do any kind of analysis or measurement. And it's actually, I think we actually change our mindset about that. And so what I'm urging is, this process of co-creation and to get a wide variety of perspectives as we're doing on this call, to be talking about, well, what are we trying to achieve? And what are the benefits that we're thinking that society might have? And also because the industry is not going to do this. I'm a child of Silicon Valley. I first started working on a QA team in 1983. And Dave, you've got a long history. John, you've got a long history. We know this industry quite well. Self-regulation is not a word that's in the toolkit. It doesn't happen. And so instead, what we need is we need to come together and agree what we think the people who would use the technology is, because it's actually that pace and scale of change that benefits the developers of the technology. You can say, oh, it's moving too fast. You can slow down innovation if you try to put any kind of guardrails and that sort of thing. And we just know from history that that just isn't true. It doesn't work. It's much, much better when civil society comes together and talks about what it believes the value and values need to be of the uses of these technologies, that we get the best results.
That's great. Thanks for the overview, Gary. That's wonderful. Jorge?
Yeah, so complementing a couple of the thoughts that been surfaced. One of them, and this relates to I think it was Tim and Tammy's original questions. In how do we measure something that's changing so rapidly, right? And something that John and I were talking about right before we connecting is uh, if this measurement is static and we just take like one snapshot and call it a day, we're definitely going to miss the mark, right? As opposed to something that is constantly evolving with the technology and the way we use it. So for instance, as an example, the survey we just shared with you all, we opened it roughly a month ago. And part of the conversation has been, well, regardless of how many people have taken it, we don't want to close it. We actually want to take snapshots of like, well, after we got 100 people, what are the numbers? What happens when we get to 500, to 1,000, and how is that evolving? And that's going to be incredibly telling as to, are we actually improving, right, with this technology as the technology becomes more a part of our daily lives? So I think that's something that's going to become more important. And the other part is, who are we asking those questions to, right? If we just focus on industry leaders and people that, if we just make it super simple, the people that benefit financially from the technology, then again, we're going to miss the point. We're going to miss the mark, and we're going to get a very skewed data set that's not telling us how this is really affecting society. If we open these questions and the conversation to everybody, right? For me as an educator, I want my students in the conversation, right? Because whatever we do right or we do wrong, uh, it's going to affect them, right? I think it's incredibly selfish if we pretend to have all the answers and we focus on what we think is right without asking the newer generations, what do they need from us so we can help them, right? As this evolves and gets integrated. So, yeah, thank you.
It's a great comment. I would just add as well in terms of the survey that our view is this is an evolving situation, and even if somebody answered the survey yesterday or last week, how are they going to answer it 6 months from now? Is their experience and performance going to change over time with this technology, given how rapidly the technology is evolving? Are the answers still going to be the same, or are they evolving as well? And being able to see the progression over time, in my view, is one of the key insights that we can gather from the survey. Keep asking the same people over a period of time and see how it's evolving for them.
I think as you were talking, Chandler, if I'm pronouncing his name right, sorry if I'm not, mentioned what's it going to be like to lead a team that's made up of agents in people, which goes to what you're talking about. In a few months, that's going to be a lot more of a common thread in how we define what the human contribution is to leadership and management as well as society. So, since we're coming close to the top of the hour, John, do you have some final remarks before we sign off?
Oh, wow. No, it's a good conversation for sure. And I think the key to emphasize is that, as Dave started the webinar with, is the notion that this is an early stage initiative. We're just beginning to evolve, and we would welcome more participation and more contributions from people because we're open. We don't believe we have the answers yet. We have some early ideas, some early hypotheses, but we need to continually evolve and get more and more insight as to what's going to be required for AI to help humans achieve much, much more of their potential. And that's something there's no one answer for yet. And I think we all need to come together to address that opportunity.
And I think to what you said earlier, John, there should be a sense of urgency around this because the path we're on right now, fear will take us to ugly places. And, this is an avenue. Maybe it nudges the conversation, but we really want to encourage more voices, further participation in this, and more of the kind of wisdom and expertise that John shared with us today. So thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. And go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to add as well that I think in terms of how we progress, it goes beyond conversation and discussion. That ultimately, if we're really committed to learning, it's through action and measuring impact. And that's where, again, metrics become key because if we don't have a sense of what impact we're trying to achieve and how to measure it, good luck. We're going to be consumed by actions all over the place and have no idea whether or not they're achieving what we want them to achieve.
That's a great closing statement. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. There'll be further webinars from HCore, and we look forward to you joining the conversation. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for
Yeah,
joining.
Thank
great.
you. And Dave, a quick thought. I just shared in the chat a link for our landing page. So if anybody is interested in kind of further communicating with us or reading about the work we're doing, that link will take you to a landing page that includes a place to subscribe to our Substack. And also at the bottom of the page, you're going to see an email address where you can reach out to me if you want to work with us, contribute. As John was mentioning, right? We want to open up the conversation, not just share our experience, but we want to hear from you and your ideas. So if you're interested in reaching out, sharing your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you very much. Hope to see you
Thank
again.
you.
Very good. Thanks.